Malolele my money. Welcome back to another episode on MariMyMoney.tech. Today's just gonna be a little bit of welcome back to school type video. Just some of my tips or things that have helped me in terms of obtaining my bachelor's degree. Just want to share some tips and knowledge that I have, things that I came across while studying that kind of aided in that process of me achieving that degree. Stay tuned. I'm gonna get into the tips. Tip number one. What should tip number one be?
I thought you wrote it down.
Tip number one, use Rate My Professor. That's like the biggest key of advice that I would give to first year students. Obviously, most of the juniors and seniors would probably know this already. Use Rate My Professor. It's a great tool because it tells you what type of professor you're about to take a class with. A lot of this, it's all based on student feedback. So I would utilize Rate My Professor and trust in it, because there's been times where it's like, oh, and I'd see like a professor. So they usually rate the professors 1 out of 5. And I noticed that like the good professors are usually in that 3 to 5 range. Obviously, you're gonna have like mixed review on some professors just because some students just had bad experiences. But like as long as you have a majority 3 to 5 range, you're gonna usually have a good professor. So stay within that range, because if not, I've taken a professor that had like a 1 or 2 rating, and let's just say life that semester was like real difficult. I barely passed the class. It was a calculus 3 class, and that professor had a 2 rating, and we started out with like 20 students at the beginning of the semester. By the end of the semester, there's like 5 of us in the final. So make sure you use Rate My Professor. That's the greatest tool, because like the first thing you're gonna do when you enter college is set up your class schedule. So it's very important that you use Rate My Professor in order to gauge whether or not you like the professor or not, or if this professor is for you and their teaching styles for you. Tip number 2, do not buy your books on the first day or before your class starts. The reason I say this is because sometimes you have like, the professor will say it's required. That's why Rate My Professor is a good first tip, because the second tip kind of leads into this is don't buy your textbooks on the first day, because if you go on Rate My Professor, you'll have students feedback where there's an option where it says at the bottom like, would you take this professor again, yes or no, and then if the textbook was actually required. So like sometimes the textbook will say required because the bookstore, obviously colleges, they want to sap you of your money, so they're gonna like say this is required. But if it's not really required online, like if there's not an e-textbook that you need to get an access code for, do not buy the book, because sometimes you'll go throughout the semester and half the stuff is not even mentioned in the book. Most of it you'll find out in lectures and notes. So don't buy the book on the first day. Obviously some classes you probably need the book, but like usually professors give you, if they're usually good professors, they'll give you like a trial period of like 1 to 2 weeks to fill the class before you drop it. And the reason you don't want to buy books is because if you drop the class, then you just bought a book for a class that you probably won't take again. So don't buy books on the first day. And also look up PDF versions of the book. A lot of the times Google it, there will be PDF versions of the book which are also free. So that's another big tip. Tip number 3, utilize all the campus resources. So the writing center, the library, computer lab, go to and join clubs, because like all of these things, resources, obviously they're there to help you, but like it'll save you the money, time, and a lot of the stress that comes associated with college. Also, clubs are a good way to boost your resume, because it's like you can get into leadership roles and then let you see other things other than just academics. So join a club. Myself in college, I was involved in athletics, so that kept me busy. And then I was also involved in a program called the RISE program, which was a Asian Pacific Islander program. It was funded through a grant. Forgot the name of the grant, but anyways, it was funded through a grant. Basically, A lot of those things that grant provided for were like student resources, so textbooks, backpacks, pencils, tutoring sessions, counseling sessions, aside from the ones that were already provided by the school. So it's good. That's why it's good to join clubs, because you never know what other resources, additional resources they may have. And they also hosted meetings, monthly meetings with students, where past students would come in, so alumni would come in and share their experience. And then there'd be food at those gatherings, so there'd be free food and stuff. So that's why it's great to join clubs, just because not only do they provide resources, but they also are a way to take your mind off of your academics from time to time and just relax a little bit, because they have a lot of hangout sessions that they do, a lot of fun things apart from just the academic side of resources that are available. Tip number 4, start your homework early and do not procrastinate. All right, college is way different from education that you've had in the past. Think about it, high school, elementary, like usually in school for like good 8 hours. But in terms of homework load, it's probably like half an hour to an hour that you spend per class. And that's like depending on what class schedule you take. But in college, you'll probably only take like 4 hours of class in person, and then the homework load will be like 8 hours. Obviously that depends on the type of class you take, because obviously there's some easy classes in college for like your general education requirements, but when you start getting into your major, that's when things start to pile up and the class load gets a little bit more heavier, especially for STEM majors. Like I said, 1 hour of classwork can sometimes be 3 hours worth of homework. So prioritize your time and your schedule. Don't procrastinate. If you're going into college, do not procrastinate, and don't let things that like clubs and things take away from your academics. Obviously, yes, the clubs are great. That's why I mentioned it in tip 3, but it's also, you want to focus in on the time that you have and places you put your time towards. Those are very important. All right, and tip number 5, last but not least, make friends. Not only are you practicing networking at an earlier stage, which will help you in your career later on in life, but having friends is key to success in college, which is why it's the last tip. Like, you gotta make specific friends when you go into college. So like, for instance, one of the things that like I would do, and this is something my football coaches would tell us to do, go into class, sit at the front of the classroom, and make a friend with the smartest kid in class. Every class I would dedicate, especially my early freshman, sophomore years. I noticed towards junior, senior, I got used to the system of college, so I was like kind of a little bit more comfortable with how college works. Especially freshman and sophomore year, I was always sitting at the front of the classroom, making sure I made friends with the smartest people in the class. Because I know I'm not the smartest person, but I will work towards networking with those people that will help me. And obviously you have to kind of be, or don't use and abuse people, but just use them just to get help on homework. You never know what that person can do for you in the future, but you can also do for that person in the future. So make friends, make connections early on in the semester, because that help will come in clutch when you're trying to form like groups, or just like quick text reminders of like what we learned in class, and like, could you explain this topic? Friends are a great way to be successful in college. Those are my 5 tips to success in college. Make sure you like, subscribe this video for more content. We will be rolling out more content from MoneyMyMoney.tech. Peace.